back, children of grade 8, for our today's English class. Children, as we are going to face our half yearly examination, so this session is going to be a revision session. So let's see the portions and the revision part one by one. Children, before getting into the revision part, let's see the exam date and the timing. So children, you are going to write your English exam on 18th, and by the time 2 to 4:30, that means 2.5 hours, you are going to write your exam, and you're going to write the exam for 80 marks. So children, so your exam is on 18th and the timings is 2 to 4:30, and the marks that you're going to write the exam 80. So this is about the exam date, timing and the total marks, children. So be clear in this, children. Let's see the portion one by one for the half yearly examination. Children, listen carefully. This is your portion for half yearly examination. So first thing is the literature part. First part is the literature part. So you can see here we are going to write the examination and the portion in the literature part is units 1 to 5. Unit 1 to 5. First one, prose. Look at the first chapter, the best Christmas present in the world. And the second one, the tsunami. Third one, glimpses of the past. Fourth one, Bipin Chaudhary's lapse of memory. And the fifth one is the submit within. So this is from the prose area. And look at the poem here. The first 5 poem. That is first one, the ant and the cricket. And the second poem is geography lesson. And the third poem is Macavity the mystery cat. The fourth poem is the last bargain. And the fifth poem is the school boy. So this is from the poem area. Let's move on to the supplementary. So same thing, 5 supplementaries. First 5 supplementaries, how the camel got his hump. The first supplementary. Second one, the children at work. And third one is the shellfish giant. And the fourth one is the treasure within. And fifth one at last, it is Princess September. So these are the 5 chapters from the literary side, children, literature, children, prose, poem and supplementary areas. Then moving on to composition part, we have 8 composition totally. First one is formal letter. Second one is informal letter. And the third one is notice writing. Fourth one, diary entry. Fifth one is article writing. Sixth one is report writing. Seventh one is message writing. And eighth one is finally email writing. So this is from the composition area. And the same thing, 7 chapters from grammar part. First, articles. Second one is nouns. Third one is pronouns. Fourth one is conjunction. Fifth one is adjectives. Sixth one is prepositions. And seventh one is tenses. So these are the portion which we going to have for the half yearly examination, children. So let's see the summary and the story one by one from the first prose to the till the fifth one. Let's move on to the rapid revision of the portions for the half yearly examination. First unit, chapter 1, prose. The title of the chapter, the best Christmas present in the world. So children, let's start the revision for half yearly examination. First chapter, prose, the best Christmas present in the world. So look at the summary here. The best Christmas present in the world is the story by Michael Morpurgo. The story begins with the author buying a cheap roll-top table from a junk shop. So the story begins with the author buying a cheap roll top table from a junk shop. Though it was in the bad condition, the author thought that he would restore it. That means he would repair it. On Christmas Eve, he started to repair it. Table was of the 19th century and was made of oak. Oak means it's a tree. So the wood was taken from the oak tree to prepare the roll top table. The drawers were badly damaged due to fire and water. When the author pulled out the last drawer, he found a secret place there. In that secret place was a small tin box. On top of the box, it was written Jim's last letter, received January 25, 1915. So, on the top of the box, it was written as Jim's last letter, received January 25, 1915. He to be buried with me when the time comes. Inside the tin box was an envelope with the address written on it. Mrs. Jim Macpherson, 12 Copper Beach, Bridport. The date on the envelope was December 26 to 1914. So here the letter was received on the year January 25th, 1915. To be buried with me when it time comes. Inside the tin box was an envelope with the address written, and there was an address in the envelope, that is Mrs. Jim Macpherson, 12 Copper Beach, Bridport. The date of the envelope was as December 26, 1914. So here the author began to read the letter. It was written by Jim Macpherson, the captain of the English army, to his wife Connie. So the letter was written by the captain of English army. His name is Jim Macpherson. He wrote this letter to his wife Connie Macpherson. He had narrated a beautiful incident that he took place in the battlefield on Christmas Day. It was the Christmas Day. So here is the content that was written in the letter. It was the Christmas Day and the English and German were at war. Both the armies were in their respective trenches. Trenches means the burrows. All of a sudden, he saw someone waving a white flag from the German side. He heard German soldiers wishing them Merry Christmas. Some of the English soldiers also wished them the same. So both the British army and the German army, they met there and came there for the war in the war field. But here what happened, the scene was completely changed here, that they become friends. So all of a sudden he saw someone waving a white flag. Here the white flag shows the peace between the German and the British army. He heard German soldiers wishing them Merry Christmas. So here the German soldiers only wishing the British army soldiers Merry Christmas. Some of the English soldiers also wished them the same. So they wished Merry Christmas. So immediately the British, that is the English soldiers, also wished them the same. Surprisingly, saw German soldiers moving towards them with armed Captain Macpherson. He thought it would be a trick, but German soldiers brought canned meat and wine. So here suddenly they started to move forward with the armed Captain Macpherson. So, but they brought only the canned meat and wine. The soldiers were hugging and wishing each other. So here the scene was totally changed and the war field was changed into a peace field, a peaceful area, and they don't want to fight each other. So they just exchange their Christmas wishes to each other and they just started to enjoy their party of the Christmas Eve. So the soldiers were hugging and wishing each other. Hans Wolf, the German officer, shook hands with Macpherson. Wolf told him that he was from Dusseldorf. Dusseldorf is the place where Hans Wolf stayed and played. Cello means it's a piano in an orchestra. So they are just not only wishing each other, just sharing their feelings and their native place about their family. Everything is going on here in the warfield. Macpherson told him that he was from the Dorset. So once Hans Wolf told that he was from Dusseldorf, immediately Macbeth also introducing himself as he came from Dorset and was a school teacher. He was a school teacher. Hans Wolf told him that he knew English and Thomas Hardy is the favorite writer. So Hans Wolf also him that he know English and Thomas Hardy is the famous writer for him. In his book Far from the Madding Crowd, he had described Dorset. Thus, he knew a lot about Dorset from there. So, from the book of Thomas Hardy, so he came to know about Macpherson's place, that is Dorset. Thus, he knew lot about the Dorset from this favorite book, Thomas Hardy, The Far from the Madding Crowd. Macpherson offered him the cake and sent by his wife Connie. So here Macpherson is just sharing his own cake that was given by his wife Connie to his own friend Hans Wolf. The soldiers played football together. After the match, all of them enjoyed the food, drinks, everything. After all this, they parted back to their trenches unwillingly. So after the party got over, they just again moved back to their trenches unwillingly. Later that night, both of the armies sang carols. Carols means songs for the while, and then was silence. So here he wrote that all these memories to his own wife Connie in a letter that was taken by the author from the roll top table, or a treasure for his lifetime. So he wrote all the memory and the treasure for his lifetime and hoped that the war will end soon. So this was the ending concluding line from the letter. After reading the letter, the author decided to return the letter to Mrs. Macpherson. He went to her house in Bridport, Dorset, and found that it was burned. So he went to her house, Mrs. Macpherson, that is Connie Macpherson's house, but he found it was burned in a fire accident. Mrs. Macpherson was 101 years old. He was inside in a house at a time of a fire. The author comes to know that Mrs. Macpherson is in the nursing home. So immediately he moved towards the nursing home to hand over the letter of her husband Macpherson, Jim Macpherson. He finds her sitting in the chair there when he called her. Connie and written the letter to her. Her eyes lit up. She took his hand with eyes filled with tears and said that her Jim kept the surprise. Also, she made the author sit beside her, talk lovingly for along with him. She said that it was the best Christmas present in the world. So, as a conclusion of this story, the best Christmas present in the world, children, the story states that the war begins only destruction and sadness in the world. That is common everywhere. When there is a war, definitely there will be loss of life, destruction, sadness everywhere. But only the path of peace will lead us to happiness and welfare of mankind. So this is the important thing. So we need peace with each other, and that leads to happiness and welfare of mankind. If it is peace, there will not be any loss of life, destruction, sadness anywhere. So we need peace around the world. So that is the conclusion of the first prose, that is the best Christmas present in the world, children. First unit, chapter 1, poem. The title of the poem is The Ant and the Cricket. Let's move on to the first poem, The Ant and the Cricket. So look at the summary here. Let's see the summary for the first poem, The Ant and the Cricket. The Ant and the Cricket is a fable in a form of poetry written by Aesopus. So the poem Ant and the Cricket is a fable. It was in a form of poetry written by poet Aesopus. So this poem is a story of a desperate and silly cricket, desperate and a silly cricket and a miserly ant. The story about a silly cricket and a intelligent ant. The cricket would sing during the months of summer and spring. So the insect cricket, would sing during the months of summer and spring. He never stored, so he never stored food for the winters. In the winter season, he finds that there is no food to eat at home. He was starving, and thus he went to the ant. He requested the ant to lend him some food and shelter. The ant refused to help him and told him to pass the winter also dancing. After saying this, the ant threw the cricket out of his house. So in the end, the poet concludes by saying that he thinks that the fable is quite true, as there are many human beings who do not care about the future. They thus repent when the time is gone. Conclusion of the poem, The Ant and the Cricket. The story tells us that we shall not behave like cricket. We shall always prepare for the future so that in difficult times we do not have to beg to others for help. So it also teaches us that we shall also be helpful to others, unlike the ant. So, two things here the author is conveying. One is we have to prepare for the future. It definitely helps in our difficult times. Then we no need to beg others for help. The next thing is he teaches here about how we should help others. So we should not do like the ant that it done in the poem. We should help others in their difficult times. So this is the conclusion and moral of this poem, children. The Ant and the Cricket, first poem. Now let's see Unit 2, Prose, the title of the chapter, The Tsunami. Children, let's start the second prose, The Tsunami. Let's see the summary here. This chapter has 3 different parts. The stories in the first part are from Andaman and Nicobar Islands. In the first story, Ignatius' wife, Ignatius is the first character of this story, children. Ignatius' wife woke him up sensing an earthquake, but it was the sea rising. The tsunami had struck them. He lost his wife and 2 children in this calamity, along with his father-in-law and brother-in-law. So this was the first story, and look at the next story here. The second story is about Sanjeev, who got drowned while saving his cook's wife along with her. The third incident is about Meghna, who was brought to shore with thus safe. It's about Almas, whose whole family swept in the tsunami except her. So in the second story we have third incident, and look at the fourth incident, it is Almas. So third and fourth incident are similar to each other. Is here in third incident the character is Meghna, who brought to shore and was thus safe. In the fourth incident, it was about Almas, whose whole family swept in the tsunami except her. So, the story in the second part is from Thailand. So, it is a story of a young girl, Tilly. She sensed of coming a tsunami and got alarmed. She saved the life of her family as well as other people. And the third part of the chapter speaks about that animals have a sixth sense better than humans. So about 150,000 people were killed in tsunami, but only few animals died. Some of the animals also saved the life of the masters. పా మెల్లిగా మాట్లాడుపా. So in the second story we have third incident, and look at the fourth incident, it is Almas. So third and fourth incident are similar to each other. Is here in third incident the character is Meghna, who brought to shore and was thus safe. In the fourth incident it was about Almas, whose whole family swept in the tsunami except her. So the story in the second part is from Thailand. So it is a story of a young girl, Tilly. She sensed of coming a tsunami and got alarmed. She saved the life of her family as well as other people. And the third part of the chapter story in the second part is from Thailand. It is a story of a young girl, Tilly. She sensed the coming of tsunami and got alarmed. She saved the life of her family as well as other people. So in the second part it is from Thailand. Here in this second part it was a story about a young girl called Tilly. She sensed the coming of tsunami and got alarmed. She saved the life of her family as well as the other people. The third part of this chapter speaks about the animals have the sixth sense better than humans. About 150,000 people were killed in tsunami, but only a few animals died. Some of the animals also saved the life of their masters. So in the third part of the chapter it tells about the animal that have sixth sense better than humans. So nearly 150,000 people were killed in tsunami, but few animals died. Some of the animals also saved their lives of their masters. So let's start from the first part. The first part includes a story from Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The first story is of Ignatius. He was the manager of a cooperative society in Kachal. At around 6 a.m., his wife woke up him, sensing an earthquake. He put the television set on the floor in order to save it, while the family rushed out of the house. When the earth stopped shaking, they could see the sea rising. So here in the first part, as I told you, it was about Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And the first character of the story is Ignatius. He was working as a manager in a cooperative society in Kachal. At around 6 a.m., his wife woke up him and sensing an earthquake. He put the television set on the floor in order to save it, while the family rushed out of the house. The earth stopped shaking and they could see the sea rising. So the tsunami swept his wife, 2 children, father-in-law and brother-in-law. The second story is about a policeman, Sanjeev. Sanjeev was able to save himself, his wife and his daughter. But after hearing the cries of the guest house cook John's wife, he jumped into the water in order to save her. He could not save her as well as himself, and both were got drowned. The third story is about the 13-year-old Meghna. Tsunami swept her along with her parents and 77 other people, but fortunately she held on to a wooden door. After floating for 2 days, a wave brought to her back to the shore and saved her. The last story is about Alma's, a 10-year-old girl. Her father saw a water receding after the tremors and understood what it will be come back with immense force. He thus woke everybody so that they can go to the safe place. In all this chaos means here confusion. Her grandfather fell down and her father went to help him. With a big wave swept them away during this. Her mother and aunt swept away along with the tree that they were holding on to, while Almas climbed on the floating wooden log and fainted. She was taken to the hospital to Kamorta. So this is second part story. So look at the next story in the same second part. Second part of the chapter contains of the story from Thailand. This is the story of an intelligent girl, Tilly. It was 26 December and Tilly along with her family were on the beach. Tilly and her family were originally from England and had come to Thailand to celebrate Christmas. Tilly and her mother saw a sea rising slowly, starts to foam, and making whirlpools. Her mother was not worried by these signs, but it occurred to Tilly that these were the sign of tsunami. She informed about this to her family, and they, along with the other people on the beach, returned to the hotel. Luckily, the hotel building withstood the force of tsunami, and they all were saved. So, the third part of the chapter speaks about the sixth sense of the animal. Around 1,50,000 people lost their life, but only a few animals died. For instance, in Yala National Park, situated in Sri Lanka, 60 visitors died, while only 2 animals died. Also, in the same park, people noticed that 3 elephants ran away from the beach and are prior to the struck of tsunami. Another incident also from Gali in Sri Lanka. Here, 2 dogs refused to go to the beach for a walk. Their masters also thus could not go and were saved. Let's see the conclusion of the chapter 2 Pros the tsunami. We need to keep our environment clean, else these disasters will keep occurring. So, as the conclusion of the chapter the tsunami, we need to keep our environment clean, else these disaster means destruction will occur and it will destroy the lives of the people as well as the world also, children. So that's all from the lesson tsunami. Now let's see unit 2 poem. The title of the poem is Geography Lesson. So children, let's start the second poem, Geography Lesson. Look at the summary here. The author of this poem is Zulfikar Ghosh. So the author of this poem is Zulfikar Ghosh. Ghosh was born in India before independence. Eventually, after independence, he settled in Pakistan and now he resides in the USA. This is a single stanza poem of 24 lines and does not have any rhyme scheme. So, this is a single stanza poem of 24 lines and does not have any rhyme scheme. In this poem, Ghosh talks about 3 things. Firstly, how everything looks from the sky. Secondly, how civilization was set up. And lastly, why people hate each other. So these are the 3 things he mentioned in the poem. How everything looks from the sky. Firstly, That is the first point. Second thing is how civilization was set up. And lastly, why people hate each other. Sprang means climbed up. The poet says that when he sees the city from a jet, the poet says that when he sees the city from a jet, he finds that the city are not well planned. It looks haphazard. He realizes that water is very essential for various activities such as agriculture, transport, business, etc. As the jet moves higher, he reflects that people have built boundaries and hate each other. So in this poem, he tells about the city, how it is looks when he flies over the sky. He find that city are not looking well planned. It looks haphazard. He realized that water is very essential for all the activities. As jet moves higher, he reflects that people have built boundaries and hate each other. Let's see the conclusion of the poem's geography lesson. The moral of the poem is that we shall use natural resources like land and water wisely. Also, we shall all live together on harmony and not fight with each other over real things. In this way, we can make earth a beautiful place to live in. So, as the moral of the poem is that we have to use the natural resources like land and water properly. We should not waste it. And also, we shall all live together with harmony. We should not fight with each other over trivial things. In this way, we can make the earth beautiful place to live in. So if these things are possible, definitely our earth become very beautiful place to live in. So that is the conclusion of this poem, Geography Lesson by Zulfikar Kosh. Children, let's see chapter 3 prose, the title of the chapter, Glimpses of the Past. Children, let's see the third chapter, prose, Glimpses of the Past. Let's see the summary here. This chapter describes the events and circumstances that took place in India during the year 1757 to 1857. It starts with the time when the East India Company was very strong in India. The Indian princes and states were busy fighting with each other. They often sought British help, and thus British took advantage of this to gain power and establish their rule in India. The social conditions were also not in good shape. Social evils such as child marriages, untouchability, sati pratha, etc. were prevalent in society. Also, the farmers had to pay heavy taxes. So, children, in this chapter describes the events and the circumstances that took place in India during the year 1757 to 1857. It starts with the time when the East India Company was very strong in India. The Indian princes and states were busy fighting with each other, and they often sought British help, Thus, British took advantage to this to gain power and establish their rule in India. The social conditions were also not in good shape. Social evils such as child marriage, untouchability, sati pratha, etc. were the prevalent in this society. Also, the farmers had to pay heavy taxes. So, these are the social evils that were practiced in those years. And the next thing is Rajaram Mohan Roy. Rajaram Mohan Roy worked a lot towards reforming society. British also passed many resolutions to ruin India and Indian industries. So Rajaram Mohan Roy worked a lot towards reforming the society, to purify the society. British also passed many resolutions to ruin, to destroy India and Indian industries. Lord Macaulay also brought a bill according to which the medium of education could only be English. The main aim of British was to prepare clerks who can assist them in the administration. By the year 1856, India had fully become a British colony. However, after the revolt of 1857, the British rule started to shake. The Indians revolted and struggled for freedom until 1947, that is, till they achieved it. So, that's all from the summary of the chapter, The Glimpses of the Past Children. Let's move on to the conclusion of the chapter. This chapter tells us that united we stand, divided we fall. This also teaches us that in order to be successful in anything we do, we need to be organized. So, the only moral of this chapter, Glimpses of the Past, is united we stand, divided we fall. It also teaches that in order to be successful in anything we do, we need to be organized. So that's all from the conclusion of the third chapter, Prose, Glimpses of the Past Children. Children, let's see chapter 3, poem. The title of the poem, Macavity the Mystery Cat. Third chapter 3, poem, Macavity the Mystery Cat. Look at the summary here for the poem. The author of this playful poem is T.S. Eliot, who seems to be fond of cats. So, here in this is a playful poem. It is a playful poem written by T.S. Eliot, who was a fond of cats, who was a lover of cats. This poem is a part of his work, Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. So, this poem is a part of his work, Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. Look at the next thing, that is Macavity, a master criminal. The poem is about a cat called Macavity. He is also called the Hidden Paw. So in this poem, the cat named is Macavity. The poem is about the cat called Macavity. He is also called as Hidden Paw. The cat is a great criminal. He has openly disobeyed the law. Yet the police of Scotland Yard is helpless before Macavity. Sometimes the flying squad runs after it. However, the squad is always disappointed. The cat is never found by it. He has openly disobeyed the law, yet the police of Scotland Yard is helpless for Macavity. Sometimes the flying squad runs after it. However, the squad is always disappointed. The cat is never found by it. Macavity moves much faster than the flying squad. So, this is the problem in this poem of the character Macavity, the mystery cat. Look at the next heading here, Macavity, a breaker of the laws of nature. The poet is sure that there has been no creature like the Macavity. So the poet is sure that there has been no creature like Macavity. Macavity has broken not only human laws. But even the laws of nature. He floats in the air without any support. Thus, he breaks the nature's law of gravity. The fakir are to have some magical powers, but even they stare upon the Macavity. The fakir means magicians, even they are supposed to have some magical powers, but even they used to stare at Macavity, because Macavity, the mystery cat, is the cat that has some supernatural power extra than the fakirs. Yet the wonder of wonders is that when one rushes to the scene of the crime, Macavity is not found. Those who look after him find him neither in the basement, that is under the earth, nor in the air, that is sky. So those who look after him find him neither in the basement or under the earth or nor in the air, that is sky. So it will be unseen from the area where the crime has been done. So nobody could see the McCavity, and it will be like a hidden paw in the crime. McCavity appearance. So look at the appearance of the McCavity here. McCavity is a very special cat. He is very tall and thin. It's very easy to recognize him. His eyes are deep set in his face. His brow has deep wrinkles as if he is lost in deep thoughts. Due to constant neglect, his skin is full of dust. If he is lost in the deep thoughts, due to constant neglects, his skin is full of dust. You will find him swaying his head from side to side just as a snake does. You will find him swaying his head from side to side just as a snake does. He is an expert cheat. Cheat means liar. So he is an expert cheat. When you feel he is asleep, he is only dozing, means simply closing its eyes. In fact, McCavity is always alert. So this is the appearance and character of McCavity. And here coming the character of McCavity here. The McCavity's character. McCavity is unique and he is evil incarnate. Originally, you can find him anywhere, in the by street or in the square. However, when you want to punish him for a crime, he is nowhere to be seen. So children, that's all from the summary and the conclusion of the poem, The McCavity, the Mystery Cat, written by T.S. Eliot. Chapter 4, Prose, Bipin Chowdhury's Lapse of Memory. So let's see the summary of Chapter 4, Prose, Bipin Chowdhury's Lapse of Memory. So look at here children, the summary of the story. Bipin Chowdhury's Lapse of Memory is a humorous story about a man, Bipin Chowdhury. He is the protagonist of the story who thinks he is sick. Protagonist means main character children. So he is the main character of the story who thinks he is sick. Sick means not feeling well. Then look at the next paragraph. The story begins by telling us about a man named Bipin Chowdhury. So this story is about the man Bipin Chowdhury only. So the story also begins with the man named Bipin Chowdhury. It was his habit to visit a bookshop and buy books of his liking. So he had a habit of visiting to the bookshop, had a habit of buying books and reading it. One day on such a visit, a man approaches him. He tells Bipin that his name is Parimal Ghosh and is an old acquaintance of his from his Ranchi trip. So acquaintance means a person who knows slightly but not a close friend. That is known as acquaintance children. So here, as one day our character protagonist Bipin Chowdhury, he came to visit the same bookshop. There he met a man. His name was Parimal Ghosh. He is an old acquaintance. Acquaintance means a person who is known to him slightly but not a close friend. So he just told about the Ranchi trip that he had met the man Bipin Chowdhury. So here the man Parimal Ghosh, he is just telling about the Ranchi trip. There he met our protagonist Bipin Chowdhury. So look at the third paragraph children. At first Bipin is convinced the man is confusing him for someone else. First in the beginning Bipin thought that the man is somewhat confused and he is just talking about someone else. But however, when Parimal reveals the personal detail about him, he gets confused. So one by one, when Parimal Ghosh started to say about his personal details, he got confused. Bipin cannot remember any of the incident the man was talking about. So the Parimal Ghosh, whatever he is just telling about Bipin, but Bipin cannot recall all the incident that what the man is pinpointing and talking about him. In fact, he has never been to Ranchi. So here Bipin, he completely forgot about that incident about Ranchi and the trip about Ranchi, but the man who met Bipin Chaudhary in the bookshop, Parimal Ghosh, he is just telling everything about the personal details of Bipin as well as the Ranchi trip to him. That's all from the third paragraph, children. Move on to the fourth paragraph here. The man then says that Dinesh Mukherjee was also on the trip. He may confirm it with him. So also he is just telling about a man who was named as Dinesh Mukherjee. Bipin does not pay much heed. Heed means attention to this. Doesn't want to pay much attention to this man, that is Parimal Ghosh. Now Bipin was very much confused as he cannot remember that particular incident only. So fifth paragraph here. Now Bipin Chaudhary was really confused and he couldn't recall the incident. That so he started worrying and feels he is losing his memory. Immediately he started to feel for his loss of memory, that is lapse of memory. This is what the title, Bipin Chaudhary, lapse of memory. Lapse means losing of memory. Now Bipin asked the doctor for a remedy. So here now Bipin asked the doctor for a remedy, for a solution for this loss of memory to a doctor. This confuses the doctor as well as he has not seen a case like this before. Even the doctor got confused and he told that he never seen such a case in his lifetime. All from the fifth paragraph, children. Let's move on to the sixth paragraph here. The doctor advises Bipin to visit Ranchi. So after this checkup from the doctor advised him to visit Ranchi to get rid of this problem. Here, he thinks that revisiting the place may bring back memories he thinks he has forgotten. The doctor is telling that when you revisit that place, maybe you could have get the memories again back to the original. So Bipin even takes a trip there, but still he does not remember the thing. So here, after even Bipin visited the place Ranchi, still he doesn't remember the memories again. He couldn't recall the memories again. He now starts worrying and calls for the doctor. So here he is just worrying a lot about his losing of memory and he is just calling back to the doctor again, and who will come later. So that's all from this page. Let's move on to the next page. Before the doctor arrives, Bipin learns the truth. His friend Chuni Lal. So this is the twist and the turning point of this story. Before the doctor arrived, here Bipin got the truth. He ruled out the truth of that incident, Ranchi trip. So his friend, one of his close friend Chuni Lal, played a practical joke on him to take revenge. So only because of his close friend Chuni Lal, this Ranchi confusion and the confusion to Bipin was happened because of the friend Chuni Lal. He played a practical joke on taking as a revenge on Bipin Chaudhary. Once Chuni was a dire need of a job. So one Chuni Lal was very poor and he suffered a lot because of jobless. He just dared to need of a job. He just asking for a job. But Bipin could not help him, so he avoided him. Here, in this situation, Bipin Chaudhary, he could not help the person, Chuni Lal, his close friend, so he avoided him. That is the reason Chuni Lal took a revenge and he played a trick over him. And he sent a person called Parimal Ghosh, and he confused him and he made confused. So that he had a problem of lapse of memory. Thus Chuni Lal did all this to take revenge from him. This angers Bipin but it also gives him that he is fine and not losing his memory. So that's all. Finally, at last, Bipin got angry as well as, and he came to a conclusion that he don't have any problem. He is good and fine, and he don't have any losing in his memory. There is no problem in his memory. Finally, when the doctor arrives, he lies to him instead of admitting that it is a prank. He says that visiting Ranji brought his memories back and he is fine now. So at last the doctor arrives there in this place before the Chunilal, and he just lied to the doctor that after visiting the Ranji trip, he got all the memories back, as it's true. It was happened on his life. So he behaved like a good and well-mannered person. He didn't disclose that one of his friend played a trick and took it as a challenge. Just lied to the doctor and said after visiting the place he could brought out all his memories back, and now he is well and good. Now he is fine at last. So that's all from the summary of the chapter 4, that is prose, Bipin Chowdhury's lapse of memory. So let's see the conclusion part of this story also. So conclusion of Bipin Chowdhury's lapse of memory. This is a very funny story which tells us about a practical joke that a friend plays on another friend out of spite for not helping him in the time of need. It teaches the lesson of us, you sow, so shall you reap. So whatever you are just doing, that you have to reap it again. That is the proverb here. So it is a proverb. It tells us a lesson, as you sow, so shall you reap. So whatever you are sowing, that you are going to reap. So that is what the conclusion and the moral of this story, children. So don't avoid your friends when they are in the needy. Please help them needy time. And definitely one day the help will come to you again. So that is the moral of the story. Chapter 4, prose, Bipin Chowdhury's lapse of memory. So that's all. We have completed summary of the 4th chapter, children. Let's move on to the 5th chapter and the summary now. Children, let's see the next chapter, that is Unit 5, prose, the submit within. Then let's see the summary of chapter 5, prose, the summit within. Look at the summary here. The author and the narrator of this chapter is Major H.P.S. Ahluwalia. So the author of this story and the narrator of this chapter is Major H.P.S. Ahluwalia. The author here describes his experience and feelings standing on the Mount Everest. So here in this chapter he is just describing his own experience and feelings about the Mount Everest, climbing over the Mount Everest. Major Ahluwalia was a member of the Indian expedition. Expedition means mountain climbing to Mount Everest. It was the first successful expedition and took place in the year of 1965. So it was the first successful expedition and it happened in the year 1965. He was too tired physically when he reached the Everest. He felt humble, joyful and also sad at the same time. Also, he was very thankful to God. Very tired physically, but when he reached the Everest, and he felt very happy at the same time, he thanked the God wholeheartedly. So that's all from the first paragraph of this summary, children. Let's see the next paragraph. After climbing the Everest, he concluded that to climb a summit, a person requires endurance, persistence and willpower. So after climbing the Everest, he just concluded and he told about the experience that a person who wants to climb the summit, he needs to have all these qualities, that is endurance, persistence and willpower. He further says that he loves the mountains and has a strong urge to climb them. The obstacles in climbing the mountains attract him. He also says that after looking down from the peak of the Mount Everest, he felt that all the efforts was worth it. So here he is just telling about the experience and the obstacles what he faced while he was climbing the mountain. He says that he loves to climb the mountain. After he reached the mountain, he thought of that all the obstacles are worthful. So all the obstacles are worth for the effort. According to him, we all have a peak inside us. So he is just comparing the Mount Everest with the human life, that he is telling that we all have a peak inside us that we need to climb. So he is just telling about the inner mountain that was inside one's heart, and that everyone should climb. So that is the thing he is just conveying here by comparing the Everest, Mount Everest. Both climbing the Everest peak and the internal peak change you. So in this paragraph he conveyed about the experience of his mountaineering to Mount Everest. So that's all from the second paragraph, children. Look at the third paragraph here. In the year 1965, the expedition of Mount Everest was the first successful expedition. Edmund Hillary and Major Ahluwalia were also a part of this expedition. So that expedition, mountaineering is the expedition, climbing the mountain. So in that team, Edmund Hillary and Major Ahluwalia were also there in that expedition. This chapter is a remnants of this expedition by Major Ahluwalia. So here in this chapter, he remnants means just recalling of that experience by the Major Ahluwalia. He says that standing on the peak of the Mount Everest, he felt humble, joyful, though he was physically tired. So even though he was physically tired, once he reached the Mount Everest, he felt very joyful and he felt humble also. He felt that this joy will remain with him all his life, was thus thankful to God, and he felt joy and he just thanked the God Almighty also. Also he was sad somewhere. So in between he also sad somewhere. So he was not sure about the reason. He thought that it was because now there is no higher peak to climb. So he is just telling that this is the one of the most highest peak in the world. Then there is no peak in the world like this hereafter. Sadness and the reason for that sadness he is telling here. In spite of climbing this summit, so here he is telling in the next paragraph, in spite of climbing this summit, he thinks that there is also another summit that we need to climb. It is the summit of our minds. So climbing the summit is the one need to climb, and also the another summit, that is our minds, that also to be climbed by oneself. So that is the meaning here. As per his observation, he said that a person requires 3 qualities to climb any summit, whatever the summit it is. So a person should need these 3 qualities to climb the summit. What are the 3 qualities? That is endurance, hard work without losing hope, and willpower. So these are the 3 qualities one must have to climb the summit. Endurance, persistence and willpower be the 3 qualities which a person needs to overcome the obstacles of his life. And every person thus enjoys overcoming the obstacles. So that's all from this paragraph, children. Let's move on to the next paragraph here. On the question of why he chose to climb the Everest. So the interviewer, he is asking this question to Major H.P.S. Ahluwalia, why he chose to climb the Everest. So he says that he loves the mountains. So that was the answer from our author and the narrator, our Major HPS Ahluwalia. As Mount Everest is the highest of them all, and it is a great struggle against rock and ice to climb it. So it is a great struggle against the rock, ice to climb on it. He finds it very challenging. So he just enjoy the challenge. He finds something challenging. He wants to do something challenging. So that's why he selected the Mount Everest to climb. He says that he was a strong urge to face the challenge and overcome the obstacles. Face the challenges, and he wants to overcome all those obstacles to reach the Mount Everest. All to him, the joy of climbing Mount Everest is too much, as only a few can manage to do this. So as it is the highest peak in the world, only few can manage to do this. So everyone cannot do this. Everyone cannot manage that obstacles. Only few can manage those obstacles. He adds here that climbing Everest is not just a physical achievement, but also is an emotional and spiritual experience also. So he is just telling as a conclusion, he just added this as that climbing Everest is not just a physical achievement, but it is also an emotional and spiritual experience also. This success has brought to him fame and also fulfillment in his life. Mount Everest has brought him name. Fame means popularity. Fame, popularity, and also fulfillment, that is physical fulfillment as well as emotional and spiritual fulfillment. So look at the next paragraph here. He further says that the summit is also a lesson of companionship. So he just telling that this summit also is a lesson of companionship. Two people share the same rope while climbing the mountain. So two people have to share the same rope while climbing the mountain. So that is the thing here about the companionship. So one climber needs to hold the rope firmly while the other one cuts the steps into the hard ice. So this is the way they just helped each other and they learned the lesson of companionship. So here one should need to hold the rope tightly and other should walk by cutting the steps in the hard ice. Second one, then belayance means overcome, and the first 1 inch is way up. It is a very difficult for a single man to think of climbing a mountain. It is very difficult. Only the person needs physical as well as emotional support. They need physical as well as emotional support of their parents. So those who climb the Mount Everest, they need some physical as well as emotional support from their parents. Then only they can achieve their goal. And the hardship that he faced in his mountaineering. Children, look at the next paragraph here. Ahluwalia further states that after reaching the peak of Everest, they all bowed down to God. So after they reached successfully to the peak of the Mount Everest, they all bowed. Bow means just down, and they were thanked their God Almighty. They left a picture of Guru Nanak. One of a team member who left a picture of Guru Nanak, God left a picture of Goddess Durga. So one who left a picture of Guru Nanak, Rawat, who is a person, team member who left the picture of Goddess Durga, and Fudurji left a lyric of God Buddha. Fudurji is a person, member of the mountaineering, and he left a lyric. Lyric means statue of Lord Buddha. And Edmund Hillary buried a cross under the snow at the Everest. So many people, they are just leaving their memorable things there. So how many people here, they left their remembrance there? One person, name was not mentioned here. He just left the picture of Guru Nanak, Then Rawat, who left a picture of goddess Durga. Pudurji left a lyric of God Buddha. And finally, Edmund Hillary buried a cross under the snow at the Everest. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 people, they just kept their remembrance of climbing the mountain over there on the top of the Mount Everest. So these 4 people, they left their remembrance. Children, look at here the last passage of this summary. He also says that every person has within him his own mountain peak. Climbing this inner peak is also important, as this climb will also change him. He also adds that perhaps the internal summit is even higher than the Everest. So he also says something about the one's own internal peak that should also be climbed by everyone. So that's all from the summary, children. Let's see the conclusion. The conclusion of the summit within is that we can overcome any obstacles or situation in life if we have endurance, persistence and willpower. So these are the 3 qualities one should have to face and overcome any obstacle and situation in his own life. So that is the conclusion of the chapter, the Summit Within, chapter 5, prose, children. So that's all from the summary and conclusion. Let's move on to the unit 4 poem, The Last Bargain. Children, let's see the summary and the conclusion. Children, let's see the chapter 4 poem, The Last Bargain. Look at here, the summary of the poem, The Last Bargain here. The Last Bargain is a poem written by the famous and Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore. It is a poem about a person looking for a job. The speaker in the poem is searching for a job in which he does not have to lose his freedom. He receives the first from the king. The king offers him power in return for his labor, but he refused the king's offer. So, this poem is written by famous and renowned Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore. So, here the boy, he is just waiting for offer from the king, and the king offers his power, but he refused the king's offer. So that was the first person he met, and he seeks for the job. First, in the beginning, he receives the job from the king, and the king offered him the power, but the boy refused the king's offer. Look at here the next paragraph. He receives the second offer from a rich man. First, he receives offer from the king, and the king offered his power, but the boy refused the king's offer. Secondly, he offered him a lot of gold in return for his labor, but the speaker refuses his offer also. He receives the third offer from a beautiful girl. First one, he got offer from the king. The king gave some power, but he refused it. Secondly, he got offer from a rich man. The rich man gave lots of gold, but the boy refused it again. Thirdly, the next person is a beautiful girl. She says that she will give him smiles in return to his labor. The speaker refused her offer too. End of the poem, he finds a child playing on the seashore. The child says that he will offer him nothing in return for his services. The speaker accepts the child's offer as he can still be a free man. So, finally, he accepts the small child's offer. The child says that he will offer him nothing in return for his services. The speaker accepts the child's offer as he can still be a free man. So, this was the poem, The Last Bargain, children. Look here, the explanation of the poem one by one. But here, The Last Bargain is a poem describing the story of a man who is in search of a job. He wants a job in which he can work without losing his freedom. The speaker receives the offer from powerful king a rich man and a beautiful girl, but turns all of them down. Finally, he accepts the offer of a small little child, which is the last bargain. The speaker receives the first offer from the king early in the morning. King possesses more power than wealth. Thus, the king offered him power in return for his services. But the speaker thinks that his power is not much worth it. It may fade soon. So he refuses to accept the king's offer. So first the king's offer was refused by the boy. Then next comes the rich man. It's the second offer from the rich man in the midday. So within a day he got so many offers. So in the early morning he got offer from the king, and secondly in the midday he got offer from the rich man. The rich old man offered him a lot of gold for his services. The gold and wealth did not attract the speaker. So he feels that the money will spend soon and it cannot buy everlasting happiness. So he thus refused his offer also. So he refused that offer also. In the evening, there was a natural beauty and flowers around all. A beautiful girl with a pretty smile offers him smiles in return for his service. The speaker feels that her happiness was sorrowful in disguise. So soon this happiness will also once fade away. So as he did not find it also so suitable for him. So he also written her offer down. Ultimately, while he was walking, he reaches the seashore. There he finds an innocent child playing with seashells. He plays there with him. The child says that he can pay nothing in return for the labor of the speaker. So here, all from the beginning, he got so many offers from all the people, but he refused it. But here, the little child, he doesn't have anything, so he cannot pay anything in return for the labor. But the speaker accepts his offer. But the speaker accepts his offer. He feels that while playing with the child, he will not lose his freedom. He will still be free, a free man, and will receive everlasting happiness playing with the innocent child. First, he accepts the offer of a small little child there, but he cannot pay anything in return of the labor. So he feels happy and he accepts this offer and he wants to be still free. He will not lose his freedom. So this was the last bargain that made by the speaker, accepted as he was not to compromise his freedom. End of the poem Last Bargain. Look at the conclusion of the last bargain here. For real and everlasting happiness, we do not need power, money or beauty. So if you want happy lifelong, we need not have power, money or beauty. We need only the freedom and innocence. We can make a person's life happy and contented. So once if you want to be happy, you need to have freedom and innocence within you. That is the real everlasting happiness that one should need in their life. So that is the conclusion of the poem The Last Bargain, children. Children, all the very best for the examination. Go through all the summary that we have revised in this session and the grammar chapters. Learn everything, work out the grammar exercises that was given in the worksheets. All the very best for the examination.